I gotta take this slow because here's how the book has it. All right, everybody, it's Mike here from The Art of Guitar. I'm back with another video that I'm real excited about. This is going to be a special edition of the Bad Tab series. I'm actually going to be reviewing or putting in order, basically, all of my Metallica tab books from worst to best. I thought that would be the best order to go in. So I've done a few isolated videos where I really focused in on, I think, 3 of these, but today I'm going to be busting all the ones I have out, and we're just going to see which ones sit at the bottom and which ones have risen to the top in my opinion. So let's start with what I consider the worst Metallica tab book that I own, and that is And Justice for All.
And Justice for All.
I don't think that comes as a big shock to a lot of people. I think a lot of people know that And Justice for All is pretty much notorious for being the worst Metallica tab book out there. But what I want to do is take each book and just highlight, a handful of parts that really stand out to me. So one of the worst sins of this book is that it really did a bad job with Blackened, which is actually my favorite Metallica song. Let's take the main riff, for example. They have us playing on the D string with these weird string mutes like this. It's a big difference from the real thing, isn't it? And then the climb, it's just so weak. By the way, today I'm back to using the good old Atari 2600 controller as my page holder. There's just something really cool about it staring at me. It kind of looks like a member of Slipknot if you look at it at the right angle. All right, the next bad tab was really bad for me because one of the first songs I ever heard from Metallica was One. And I wanted to learn that opening solo really bad. So when it comes to this walk down, which could be very simple, see, it's just a series of pull-ups on the 3rd string. They have it transcribed like this. That makes no guitar sense at all to play it like that. Let me try to speed it up. Compare that to this. It's night and day. Glad I put these post-it notes on here. It makes it so much easier. All right, let's take a look at To Live Is To Die. Now, this is one of those epic intros that everybody wants to try to play. It sounds really great on a classical guitar, and I actually had one back when I first started guitar. So I tried it with this transcription, and it just messed me up for a long time. Watch these weird fingerings they have us do. That's weird. I know they meant to go like this, with the double stop first, but the way it's transcribed, it's backwards, so that kind of messed me up. Okay, now this part. Switch positions. Don't ask me why, but they want us to do a harmonic at the 1st string like this. If you look at the real transcription for that, it's just so much more easy to play. There's so less movement to do. Like, for example, this part, where they have you go, then jump way up there. In the better transcription, you just stay right here. You just go like this. That's just one example, but check out the real transcription. The songster version is actually pretty good. Now, the next mistake has been the subject of all these myth-busting videos, including a couple of my own, and that is Dyer's Eve, where there's all this confusion about what James is doing for the riff. It's really just this. However, the book says to alternate between B and C really fast, which, by the way, is really, really hard to do clean, and I did this in early videos, but I practiced a lot, I think. Now I just have to fake my way through it. But they added complexity over an already complex riff, which makes it almost impossible if you're not really, really practiced up. And even if you nail it, it's not really what James does. Okay, the next tab book, the one that's a little bit better than And Justice for All. Can you guess what it is? Master of Puppets.
Master of Puppets.
Okay, this one has some doozies in it, and it was really close between Puppets and And Justice for All, but I think you're going to agree that the mistakes in Master of Puppets aren't as egregious. Maybe that's the best way to put it, but let's just see what they are. Now, I'm not even sure I covered this in my Master of Puppets Bad Tab video, but it's the end of the solo, which is actually my favorite part. just has such a cool descending sound to it. And Kirk is using his wah. So I brought my wah today. So I'll be using that. Okay, if you listen to the real version and slow it down, you could hear these notes. The end is a little weird. It's just kind of a big slide like that. I gotta take this slow because here's how the book has it. I can't even do it slow. Okay, I'll try it fast one time. So much easier to do the real thing, which is... Okay, this next one, I really can't blame the transcriber because back then they didn't have the technology they have today and they got pretty close. But here's what they say to do for the most important riff in Puppets, in my opinion. Okay, I can blame them for this one, though. They have us doing major chords, which is really bad in a song that's not happy at all. To throw in these huge Beatles chords, right? Okay, so... When I finally saw how James really does that, it was just like this awakening, like my brain just lit up. Because you just stay on the E string and you walk down in this really cool way. That 2-1-0 F sharp F E is so important because it ties everything together in the chromatic fashion that it's in, instead of skipping the F and going right back up. Okay, this is one of the craziest things in a tab book that I've seen in my entire life. It's where there's that misconception that Kirk pulls the string off the side of the fretboard and it hits the pickup and then it's supposed to make like a really high squeal sound. So I remember trying this a lot back in the day. Oh, I kind of got it. I think the transcriber heard the story where Kirk Hammett said, yeah, I accidentally pulled the string off the side and I've never been able to do that again because it was a weird studio accident. He's really talking about the part right before the high squeal. So I did a whole video on that. Check that out if you want to. I'll try to link it somewhere in the description. It's really just a natural harmonic with a whammy bar. Third string, I believe 2.6. That was a good one. The next one, it's just a tuning error that they made for the thing that should not be. Now, this is also very forgivable because maybe the footage of them playing it live wasn't as readily available. I know for sure it wasn't. So it's really hard to know that they're actually tuned down a whole step instead of drop D. So if you ever learn the thing that should not be in drop D, that's what I did as well. Don't feel too bad because it's kind of fun and easy to transition into the real thing. Once you tune down everything a whole step and learn it the right way, it has this different kind of heaviness to it. James Hetfield's tone is so edgy and so bitey in this album that sometimes it's hard to tell which notes he's playing, especially if he's palm muting. So once again, this is kind of forgivable, you know, but Leper Messiah's intro, the book had us going like this. Again with the full major chords. They even go out of their way to do it on the G chord and the F chord. If you see how it's really done, it's actually pretty interesting because you're using more of these barred notes. Does that sound a lot more authentic? So can't blame them on that one, but it just sounds so cool to play it the right way. All right, this one made me laugh a lot just because when I was younger, it made me almost go crazy. So the part in Orion where Kirk is doing his solo and it's the end of it. He jumps up, according to the book, to the 22nd fret, comes all the way down to the 2nd fret, and somehow goes back and forth. And I think I talked about in my other video that it sounds kind of like a whammy pedal when you do that. I looked closer in the book and it actually separated the two parts into two guitars. So it says that one person's going, whereas the other person's supposed to be doing the hammer-on. Something like that. Instead of doing that, I was so relieved to learn that it's just a hammer-on here to a pinch harmonic. Okay, so that was the Master of Puppets tab book. And what is your guess for what is the next least worst Metallica tab book? Ride the Lightning.
Ride the lightning.
You're going to see that as we go up the ladder, we have less and less mistakes for the most part. And you're also going to see that the mistakes that they do make aren't as consequential. This is one of those mistakes that just is kind of annoying to me. You know, learning it for the first time, they took an arrangement of the intro to Fight Fire with Fire and made it for one guitar player. I think I know why they did that, because they assumed anybody who's buying a tab book is probably just sitting alone in their bedroom wanting to play and wanting to sound like the full part. But I really wish they would have broken it up so that I could have been like, oh, there's actually 2 or 3 parts on here. So you didn't feel like you were completely botching it, you know, when you were trying to play the whole thing by yourself. That being said, I learned it as close as possible back in the day, trying to match what they have arranged here. But let me just show you a few parts that are still difficult to this day. That's kind of weird to do, especially if you're a beginner. Then it has us going. Now the part that really got to me was this last part. Now doing that kind of fingering and trying to play every other string with finger picking when you're in your first year of guitar almost made me want to quit. No, it didn't, but it sucked. Just look at this confusing mess. Back then, even, you know, to this day, I think they still do this where they try to save on paper. So they try to print 2 different parts on one staff. So it ends up looking like a jumbled mess. But it put me in a bad mood because I just wanted to learn the damn solo back then. I didn't want to have to whip out the magnifying glass, you know? And this book is full of that kind of stuff. It's one of the more annoying books that they have from Metallica. There's also a lot of rhythm figures and chord charts at the top that you have to keep referring back to. I'd rather just see it on tab, especially back then, and just get through it. For Whom the Bell Tolls has something that was kind of funny. During this really heavy descending part, they put another guitar part on top of that, which is just basically an octave. But they say that we're supposed to go, and then somehow we're supposed to do that. I'm trying to picture Kirk Hammett doing that instead of just doing the old James part. Okay, so those parts stood out the most to me in Ride the Lightning. Take a guess at what the next one's going to be. I don't think you're going to get this next one right. The Black Album.
The Black Album.
Now, a lot of people complain about this book, but I went through it and actually didn't find as many mistakes as I thought I was going to. There's some oddities, like there's one part where they show you that you're supposed to play the 2nd fret and the 9th fret at the same time, but it does say that it's 2 different guitars. It's just one of those annoying things where they tried to save on paper, and it makes it look really weird. It does look like it's a 1 guitar part, which I hope nobody broke their hand over that. But that being said, I still found some stuff to talk about. For example, in the big song, Enter Sandman, during the F sharp part where it's supposed to go, well, I don't know why, but they want us to chromatically walk down. Compared to which has way more grit to it, obviously. This part confused me because back when I first got this, I didn't have a wah pedal, and I just had to play it just straight. And so, according to the book, the beginning of the solo was supposed to go like this. Now, even with a wah pedal added to that, It almost sounds like the easy version. You know those tab books that are just the easy versions of all the Metallica songs? That seems like something they would do for that, but this is the official Black Album book. It's pretty weak, especially when you really know how to play it, where it's supposed to be a double stop. More guts to that one, right? Which allows you to really dig in as a guitar player. You know, the wah pedal helps too. It gives you that real, you know, Kirk Hammett thing. I always love the Unforgiven. There's just something so epic about it. And when the verse comes in, it doesn't back down. It's because one guitar is doing power chords. The other one's supposed to go like this. Adding the open strings to that makes it a different level of heavy. You know, even though it's not always palm muted, it's got this heaviness, just the... Whereas the book says to go... So they treat it more as a single note line, kind of like the intro. So I could kind of see why they would think that, but without those open strings, it's just not the same. There are tons of little things in this book, but I don't want to nitpick too much through it. But that's pretty much the extent of the parts of the Black Album book that bother me the most. Okay, drum roll. What do you think the next one is? This is fun. I forgot even. I had to look. Kill 'Em All.
Kill 'em all.
Which is funny because their first album and their tab book is one of their best. This book came to me at a great time, and it's pretty accurate, so I'm glad I learned a lot of the riffs the correct way. For some reason, though, Jump in the Fire, they want us to do this pull-off in the riff. That could have just been like an anomaly in the recording, and they just thought, oh, that must be what it's like every single time. But it feels so weird to do a pull-off there. It's like a wasted energy. If you just go like this... So much better, in my opinion. And then here's another example of them using major chords out of nowhere. At least they got this lick right, though. This is another one of those forgivable mistakes, but if I was playing this live and I had to try to do what the book says in Metal Militia, I would probably want to rage on somebody. So here's what I mean. I did a video about how that's one of the hardest riffs, if not the hardest one for me to play in Kill 'Em All. Just that dragging the pick across two strings like that feels weird to me. But the next part of the riff, they want us to jump from the 6th fret A string all the way down to the 1st fret after we just did that walk down. That's a lot to ask somebody who just did that whole elevator move. Let me try to go full speed. So it just makes you do this too much. It's way too much movement at that speed, especially when you could just go here instead. It makes so much more sense. There's a lick that starts the solo off in Metal Militia, and I don't know why they just don't surmise the easiest possible way to play it. What I mean is there's just this really cool diagonal walk down, which sounds awesome. It's fun to do. It's a fun thing to practice. And if you listen to it, it's just, you know, a descending chromatic walk down like that. But I don't know why the book has us going. It's like you can kind of see what they're trying to do, so that's why I think they could have just figured it out. You see a pattern, especially as a guitar player, and you know the best way to do it typically. But to just mangle it up like this. Then you got to do this double stop right afterwards. So you want the easiest thing possible because you're launching into a solo. Why start off behind the 8 ball? Okay, we're down to the final book. Now this one surprised me.
Just kidding.
It's actually the tab book for Load.
Load.
Okay, so is that a surprise? The best tab book I own of Metallica's is Load, and the second place was Kill 'Em All. So let's open up the tab here and see what we have. Just a couple little things. Wasting My Hate. They have the awesome main riff going like this. It sounds okay, but if you watch them play it live, you can see that they're actually going like this. At least that's what Kirk Hammett's doing. James, I believe, goes back to a power chord, but Kirk, I believe, does this cool bar. So gives it that extra heavy sound to it. So do you hear the difference if I do it the right way? Versus the book. I can't believe how awesome this guitar feels to play. I'm actually going to do a video on it very soon where I break down all my guitars. So look forward to that. Okay, this one's interesting because it's a good example of how the smallest detail can make or break a riff, in my opinion. And this one is one of those anomalies, I believe, that happened in the studio. And the book mistakes it for a note when it's actually sort of an accident. Here's what I mean. Here's the book's version of it, of Ronnie. That's kind of weird, isn't it? That little hiccup. If you listen closely to the real deal, you hear this little tiny harmonic that happens. And here's what's actually happening from my research. James is actually playing it open, playing the next string like this. So he's hitting the G really quick and then stopping it with the side of his pick, which creates that little squeal. Do you hear that? It's a weird little sound. It's hard to replicate it every single time. But if you do that, make it real staccato like that, catch the string with your pick, and then hit the next note, it sounds a lot closer. There's actually studio footage of James playing this, and you could see him playing it down here. It's easy to take a riff like that for granted and just think, oh, it seems kind of like a repetitive pattern, doesn't seem too tough. But when you really try to do it the right way, and the way James is doing it here, it's just so much more layered, so many more details. And by the way, do you notice how much brighter it sounds in the open position versus up here? So were you surprised by the order of the book? So we had And Justice for All sitting at the bottom. We had Master of Puppets, followed by Ride the Lightning, then the Black Album. What surprised me was Kill 'Em All was above that, and then finally Load at the very top. But I'm always on the lookout for more Bad Tab. If you have any suggestions, let me know, because I've got all these other series I'm doing. I don't exactly have a ton of time to just do my research on that, but I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you at the next video. Bye-bye.